Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to an insightful and interesting episode presented to you by PODIEM. PODIEM is basically an initiative by SPCs of IM to provide you with top notch content around placement, business, entrepreneurship, and of course, all things IM. I am your host, Bharat Kalyan. Today, we have with us Om, who happens to be our senior, and he has gotten placed at Cisco as a supply chain and operations analyst. So, welcome, bro.
Thank you guys for having me here. It's been a, I mean, it's. I'm really honored, because I have just passed out college, and you guys are already calling me into podcasts and stuff. So you're already making me feel like a veteran. But thank you so much for inviting me today.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, bro. So let's get this rolling. Can you please tell us a bit about your college life and what your typical day look like?
Okay, so college. I mean, college was amazing, right? You will eventually realize this after you finish college, as to how much you actually miss college and the things that happen in college. And typical college life kept changing from your first year to your fourth year because your priorities keep changing, right? So in our first years, like we used to go to college every day. After college, we used to play tennis, we used to play cricket, hang around, eat dinner, and then again start talking with everyone. And then slowly, when you start seeing towards the end of it, you have like placement tests and everything. So sometimes you have placement tests at 10 o'clock, you have placement tests at 8 o'clock. So your day would revolve basically around whenever that test was. So that's the part that I remember because that's most recent to me, right? So we would get up, go to college, come back, probably relax for a bit, and then we would have interviews, we would have placement tests, and then we would discuss at night as to what is happening and everything, and then that's how the day went.
Perfect, perfect. And what were the clubs or activities that you were involved in, and how did it, shape your career path?
So I was in a bunch of clubs. I was in Ashwa. I was in ESL for some time. I was in Debsoc for some time. So essentially, what these clubs and I was in Idea as well. I was the vice president in Idea. So essentially, what all these clubs do is they give you a slightly on-hand experience as to how a particular organization and a team works, right? So how do you work with a team to achieve a certain common goal? How do you understand other people's perspectives about the same thing and solve a particular problem, right? So they give you an idea of as to how do you get together and solve a particular problem. And again, you have technical knowledge and certain managerial knowledge that is also add on. But what I think is they teach you how you work as a team majorly, and I think that's about it. uh, so it was a wonderful experience working with these clubs because RV has really amazing clubs and they've done wonders, right? So yeah, it was a pretty good experience overall.
Yeah, and now, as we know that you were part of many clubs, how did you manage your academics along with these clubs and other extracurricular activities?
So I mean, we would have labs on certain days, and some days we would get free earlier, right?
Right.
So if you want to do something and you're really interested to do something, you will find time to manage that along with your academics, because if you really want to have fun and enjoy that part of it and take it as fun, because I still remember for Ashwa, there were a lot of times where testing used to start at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock at night, right? So you do end up finding time, and it's generally not an issue, right? And I think specifically for us, if we pay attention in class, right, and try to grasp all the subjects in class, you end up saving a lot of time rather than doing it all over again back at your hostel or at your home. So if you really want to, do your co-curriculars and enjoy them, you will find time. It should never be a problem for you to allot a certain amount of time to that and be like, okay, I'll have to manage this so and so way. It happens, naturally if you're really keen and interested in all those co-curriculars.
Interesting. And when did you start seriously prepping for placements? And what was your strategy? As in, were you clear that you're going to sit for only supply chain related companies, or what was your thought process?
So I don't remember the exact time where I started preparing for placement, but I remember how I started. It was we were a bunch of friends who were sitting in one of my friends' room in the hostel, and someone just said that, okay, damn, placements are about to start in like 3 months or 2 months. And that's when it struck me. Okay, yeah, we've actually completed this much of our engineering and we're just about to have placements. So that was the moment where I'm like, okay, I'll have to start doing something for my placements, because first of all, the market during that time wasn't that great, right? Because we were
Exactly.
hearing all the news and everything. So we didn't know what to expect, and nothing was, everything was unknown. And everyone goes through this phase because it's something new. It's something that happens for the first time.
Right.
So the pressure just starts kicking in, right? And then you start preparing. So that's how I started. And yeah, I don't remember the exact date or like the tenure that I prepared for, but that's about it.
And the follow-up question regarding, were you clear about the supply chain and operations role, or what was your thought process as in? Uh,
So
like, yeah,
generally, in you go. So I had analyzed, not analyzed. You can say I had looked at the different placements that had happened in the previous years, and you notice the different kind of roles that are there, right? So I noticed the different kind of roles that people have gotten. I try to see which part I was interested in and what are the different options that I have. So I wasn't stuck to one particular thing that I want to do this only in this particular field. And in IEM, I think most of the opportunities that you get are somewhat interrelated with each other, right? You have analytics, you have supply chain, you have a merger of both, you have
consulting.
product, yeah. So consulting, so eventually it's not a very specific thing that you work towards. It's a very generalistic broad mindset that I had, that okay, these are the different roles that are there. The most important things that are there are so so and so, and you just work over them generally. Because if you target something very specifically, like I told you, the market was not in a good condition,
Right.
and say I targeted something very specifically and that something didn't show up, so I would not be prepared for something else, right? If that was something that I was very exclusively targeting. So I had a slightly broad mindset. I saw what are the different opportunities that are possible in the future, and then I prepared in a very generalistic way for all of them.
Understood. Understood. What resources or tools did you find really helpful while prepping for placements?
So, honestly, the best thing you could do is talk to your seniors, immediate seniors, or like 2 years senior to you, because
Right.
they are working in the field that you would eventually work in, right? So
Right.
they would tell you the exact needs of the company and what are the things you need to do to get that particular role or that particular job, right? And if you're talking about resources, you have everything available on the internet. It's not hard to learn anything in today's day, right? You just go to Coursera, you go to Udemy, you get courses for very cheap. Or you could just Google it. You have hundreds of YouTube videos and whatever you want to learn. So the main problem lies in what do you need to learn, right? Because you
Exactly.
have an entire plethora of things. So that's where your seniors would actually tell you that, I had done this and this thing really helped me, right? Because that person has just recently gone through the entire experience of the recruitment process for that particular job or that particular role that you're looking for. So he would know what are the expectations, and he's working there. So he would know what are the expectations, what are the tools they work on, and he would eventually tell you narrow it down as to like what all you're supposed to do. So I think the best resource is definitely talking to your seniors, talking to your teachers as well as to how do you go about learning certain stuff, and that's the most important thing according to me.
As we are talking with one, so specifically, what are the things that you used for this particular role?
So, so for this particular role, it was very important for me to understand supply chain to a very fundamental level. You need to know your particular supply chain in a very depth perspective, right? Supply chain is a very broad concept if you look at it from a holistic standpoint. But when you study supply chain, you have to get into the depths of certain aspects of supply chain, right? Certain aspects such as your procurement, your logistics, network forecasting. So all these are extremely important topics that we study, because I felt that majority of the roles that we get in IEM are associated with supply chain. So the fundamental that they would look for is supply chain, first thing, right?
Right.
And then eventually they would move on to the tools that would revolve around analyzing the supply chain. That would be your Excel, your SQL, right? And
Okay.
then your visualization tools, Python also, Python for your analyzation,
Got
Python,
it.
SQL, Excel, right? And then your visualization tools like Tableau, Power BI. So these are certain things that they look after they see how fundamentally, you know, knowledge, what kind of fundamental knowledge you have in supply chain, right? So these are secondary and tertiary things that they look towards. Now, this is what I'm speaking in perspective of certain roles. There are certain roles that are very centric towards analytics also. That's a different thing. But so you'll have to maintain that, to and fro, or like that proper point between your knowing your fundamentals and like maintaining that knowledge, and also the analytics part, right? So I think these two parts are extremely important. Your supply chain, operations management, your decision sciences, very important. And fortunately, we have it within our course, right? I think supply chain is a current course that you guys would be studying right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
It also has a lab, which has very important experiments that are actually used in the industry. Your
Wow.
network design, your forecasting.
Right.
So all that is used in the industry. So if you are very, aware of what all of the things that are happening in your lab and in your course, and you understand that from a practical standpoint, it is a huge advantage. So I think your supply chain and your analytics, both of them are like the most important things that you could prepare for. And they are the most helpful things for most of the roles that come in for IEM.
Understood. And for the analytical part, SQL, Excel are pretty much in open, right? But can you debunk the supply chain a bit, as in what specifics, as in to take the courses or read books, something like that for our audience?
So this book, the textbook that we study is Sunil Chopra, right? So
Correct.
Sunil Chopra is the holy Bible of supply chain, right? It's the fundamental of supply chain. So I would say our course pretty much, like, it covers a major aspect of supply chain from a broader perspective, right? And then you deep dive into those particular broader topics only a little bit more, right? You have your, I think you have forecasting, you have network strategy, you have basics of supply chain, you have logistics, you have management of supply chain, you have operations. So all these broad topics, right? You have certain numericals and you have certain theory that is related to it, right? So you got to understand this theory and the numericals from a practical standpoint. So for me, genuinely, I had done an internship in Honda in supply chain only.
Okay.
So there, that was before my supply chain, before my third year, right? So before the course actually happened. So for
Right.
me, it was easy for me to relate it to a practical scenario and see how these concepts are actually used, right? So I think that was something that really helped me, because if you're able to connect whatever you are studying in your curriculum and dive a little bit deeper into whatever is happening there, and associate that with certain practical aspects and how it can be used in the industry, that would give you an edge over, someone who is not aware of supply chain, or who has a very broad perspective of supply chain, because then you're able to understand what the other person at the other end is expecting from you, right? Because he's working in a practical scenario in a supply chain. So
Correct.
he wouldn't want theoretical answers from you. He would want to see something that is practically applicable in his scenario. very, it becomes easier for you to get through the entire process.
Understood. And how has your transition been from college to working at Cisco?
So the transition, I mean, like I was still doing my major project until very recently. So
Hmm.
it was college and Cisco, college and Cisco. I mean, so there is, you have a bunch of people in the corporate space compared to like, in the normal standardized college space. So college is like a formal setup where, you have certain teachers, you have certain professors who teach you on a daily basis, and like they kind of tell you that this is what you're supposed to do, and like this is the next thing. In corporates, it's slightly different. They expect you to learn, right? They will not tell you as to start studying this or do this. They will give you a certain task, right? That this needs to be done, right? And you have certain amount of time. You These are the resources you have, and it is your, it is your thing to go and find out what are the different things that you need to learn and do to achieve whatever is being given to you. And also when you join, like when I joined in, like you are like the newbie, right? Like everyone else is much more experienced than you are. So you tend to learn a lot from those people, right? Like they have come in with a plethora of experience, like years and years of experience within the industry. So in college, when you leave college, you're the senior most, right?
Right.
So, and then over there, you're the junior most. So
Correct.
essentially, from like, in your clubs and everything, where you lead stuff and you like, allocate stuff, you become to a person who learns from other people, right? So that is a transition that I noticed. And also in the corporate space, you have a lot of, terminology and a lot of new words that come in. So it takes certain time to get used to those words. And also it's a totally new space, right? It's like it takes time for you to get used to the structure. It takes time for you to get used to the reporting. Who do you report to? How things actually happen within the corporate space? Because there are a lot of formalities that need to be happened before a certain thing needs to take place. So, there is a transition, there is a change that's there. But, you eventually get used to it and you catch up with what is happening, right? And then it happens naturally.
Got
It's just a transition that takes place.
Understood. And what does your typical day look like as an analyst at Cisco?
So normally the days I go to office, it's like you reach there by like 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock, right? And then your team is there. So we talk to our manager, and then he tells us as to what are the particular updates and everything that have happened until yesterday, right? Because our team is a global team. So the timings and all, right? They have meetings. Like my manager, when he has to connect with his peers, it happens over the night because
Okay.
US timings and Indian timings and Singaporean timings there's a difference.
Correct.
So we get updates on whatever happened very recently in the previous meeting with them, and then we are told that okay, this is what we're supposed to achieve and what are the updates and everything, and we work on everything. We have lunch and then we come back. And Cisco is it's a wonderful organization. You have a lot of opportunity to learn, and you will always have some or the other activity that would be happening within the campus, right? So a lot of days when we go to office, we would be having some sort of activity that would be taking place in the campus, where you get to meet, socialize, and network amongst different people. So yeah, that's generally how the day goes. You have some meetings, you have a certain amount of work that you would want to complete within that particular day, and sometimes you do have activities and everything throughout the day. So it's fun, it's good, and as long as you enjoy your work, I think it's you tend to do things and you enjoy the workspace and everything.
Right. And retrospectively, what are the most crucial decisions do you think that you took to reach to where you are today?
So honestly, I think the most crucial decision I took was we weren't given a gap between our second and third year for our internship because there was a certain delay in our third semester because of COVID and everything. So that gap is actually allotted for our internships.
Right.
So we have I don't know if you guys have the same thing in your scheme, but we had a small internship that we had to do for
Right.
3 credits. So it
Even
was physically not possible for us to, go to a certain place and like do an internship because we only had like 10-15 days break, right? And an internship is what you do over a period of a month or 2 months or 3 months, right?
exactly. Yeah.
So I wanted to do an internship, but it was very difficult because of the time constraint. So the decision that I feel that actually changed the rest of my engineering was I decided to work for Honda as an intern by taking 1.5 shifts or like going every single day for those 15 days so that I could do an internship for 1 month. Right. So I think that was a pivotal moment because the amount of information and the amount of knowledge that I gained from Honda was phenomenal because they are a Japanese company and they follow everything by the textbook, right?
Right.
We learn about Toyota system, talk about lean, we talk about just in time, all these Japanese words, right? Kanban, Jidoka, Pokayoke. So when you actually see them being applied in a particular industry, and how things actually work within the practical space, you tend to learn a lot. And the amount of knowledge I gained from that in those 15 days was like I feel like it was a very good amount of knowledge that I gained in those 15 days, and it helped me a lot because it would clear a lot of the concepts which I would eventually learn in supply chain, right? And it gives you a much more holistic and broader idea of how things actually happen within an industry. And majority of my interviews, they were very keen on what I actually learned in this particular internship. And I was fortunate enough to work from end to end of the supply chain, starting from materials procurement to logistics was in the end, material services, plant process control, your forecasting, your operations, everything from the beginning till the end. So I worked with 4 5 departments, and people found this very interesting when they were taking my interview, right? Because they saw that okay, this guy's worked from end to end in the supply chain.
Right.
What has he actually learned during the entire process? And Honda is a pioneer, right, in certain aspects, like the the timings and everything that they follow there are absolutely, like, if you listen to the amount of production they do in a particular day, people get shocked, right? Like their plant is so huge and the amount of production they do is just insane. Like every like half a minute or less than half a minute there's a new bike that's rolling out on 4 lines. So the amount of scale and the amount of speed and like how things are managed on that scale, right? If you're able to witness and learn from the people who directly work on that supply chain, I think that's a crazy opportunity. And I think this decision of like going with this and working there continuously for those 15-20 days, whatever time I had, was like something that gave me that pivotal edge towards, moving towards supply chain and getting that extra additional practical knowledge in supply chain.
That's insane. Uh, and what are the key skills or knowledge areas that you mainly focused on for cracking the interviews?
So, see, again, it depends role wise, right? So, I can speak for my role.
Hmm.
So, for my role, they were majorly looking for someone who understands supply chain extremely, who was able to take decisions on a strategic level for supply chain, right? He's able to analyze certain aspects of the supply chain, and he or she is able to identify a particular problem and solve that problem.
Right.
So basically, if you're aware of how things happen in a particular place, only then will you be able to identify a certain problem,
Correct.
and only then will you be able to find an alternative. So that is what they were looking for. So like my interviews and all the process was very heavily technical in terms of supply chain. Like they went to the depths of asking me very intricate details about certain aspects of different topics. right? So they really checked whether the person, right, is aware of how things happen or tend to happen in a particular supply chain, and whether he's able to make certain decisions if certain cases happen. So they had given me certain cases as to, in case you would find this kind of a reading, right, what does that indicate and how would you take a particular action, right? And
Okay.
say if this was your scenario, how would you improve your scenario and prove it to me, right? Using some amount of quantification.
Right.
So they really looked into how you would solve particular problems in the supply chain and how you would think to find alternative solutions to a particular problem.
Got it. Got
So
it.
that, yeah, that's what they were looking for.
Right. And how do you see your career evolving over next few years? And what are your long-term goals, if I can
See,
ask?
I mean, I just finished up college, right? So career evolving and all is something that I would notice eventually, right? Not very immediately. We would say, because right now I would rather focus on learning from all my team members and from the experience that they have, right? And that is the current goal that I have. And on the long term, it is definitely to gain enough knowledge from, working in certain aspects, such that you are one of those people who are able to share knowledge within that field amongst other people, right? So that is the goal. I'm not aware of, like, how my career is going to pivot and everything. That is something that will happen eventually. I'm
Right.
not aware of how things are going to happen because I'm just about to start my career.
Right.
But yeah, so the end goal is obviously to gain enough knowledge in a particular field such that you are a valued asset to that particular organization, and you're able to make decisions for that organization, and you're able to help other people and, like, share information from your experience.
Interesting. And could you point us to some particular resources for aptitude and things like that before the tests, before the placements, as in interviews?
So, see, aptitude is generally like, so again, it varies a lot company to company. I mean,
Hmm.
there were a bunch of companies uh, whose aptitude involved solving like 100 questions in 10 minutes, right? Which
Okay.
was based on speed. Then there were certain companies which would very heavily focus on logical reasoning and, like, mental ability and everything. And then there were some companies which would focus on, like, your uh, paragraphs and, like, literature reviews and everything. So I mean, it's a very wide thing. Like, aptitude is not a very generalistic thing.
Okay.
So the way we prepared was we used to take up random puzzles from the internet, right? I mean, if you Google sample aptitude papers, or, like, NTSC, if you're aware, NTSC is a examination that happens in the 10th standard.
Yep. Yep.
So NTSC papers. So all these are the different resources. Even few people were referring to CAT papers,
Okay.
because CAT also has a logical reasoning and a
Data interpretation.
quant section and a literature section.
Right.
So I mean, different people take different resources, right? And it's not a very general thing because there's no particular format as to how your aptitude will come, right? It's based on how they want to decide that this person is eligible forward or this person is not eligible forward based on their thinking.
Got it.
So so it's not a very specific thing, it's a very general thing. So you have a lot of resources, like I said, NTSC, CAT, and, like, general internet. Like, you can just Google, give me
Right.
aptitude papers from this and this company or whatever. So it's a very general thing. I don't know if there's a particular way of preparing for aptitude, but these are the different resources that are available.
Cool. Cool. And if there is any final advice or message for the students who are currently prepping for placements?
Uh, so I would say, don't worry a lot about being placed or not being placed initially, and even later on, because you guys have taken a lot of effort, right? You guys are already a part of this college, which is one of the good colleges within Karnataka, right? So people have already some level of recognition for you, right? So because of that you tend to have a lot of placement, right? It's a fact that RBC has good placements compared to a lot of other colleges. So I would say you don't have to worry so much about, placements, and don't overburden yourself saying that I didn't get into the first company, second company, third company, fourth company, because you never know, there might be some other opportunity that would be perfect for you, right? I know people who have gone through the entire process and have like almost given up, but then like end moment they end up getting one of the best jobs, right? So my just general advice would be, don't get disheartened with anything, and don't very specifically target one thing that, okay, I want this role in this particular company, because the market is not in such a state where you could tell if that this particular role for this particular company would be coming in this year, right? So you would not want to entirely rely on one particular specific thing. You would rather take all the opportunities that you have wisely, right? You have different brackets: dream, open dream, and mass. Open dream, dream, and mass. So get as many opportunities as you can, right? And apply in companies, and don't think about money initially, right?
Right.
If you, I know a lot of people who would say that, okay, this company is not giving me so much and I don't want to sit for it. And then later on, they're like, okay, I should have sat for that company.
Mhm.
So I would say, don't think about the money perspective initially. Right now, it's about how would that role or that job, right? It would add value to you. That is more important,
Right.
because this is your entire career is like a very big thing, right? And your first job is not something that would matter financially to you, right? Because I think most of us do have like support from our parents, and like, enough money to survive, right? Money isn't like something that without money you would not be able to survive, right? So I would say that shouldn't be a deciding factor, right? I'm not saying don't consider it only, right? I'm just saying it shouldn't be a very big deciding factor when it comes to you having a fantastic opportunity to learn and gain from that experience. So all in all, I would say don't stress a lot, right? Just focus on, just try to understand what is the jobs that come for IEM and what are the requirements for that. Keep talking to all your seniors, and don't overburden or stress yourself if you don't get one opportunity, other opportunity, third opportunity, fourth opportunity. And don't make decisions solely based on the finances and the packages of those particular organizations, because that doesn't really matter much when you're talking about your entire career. Because we have also gone through the same thing, and we also had the same kind of thinking, like, if I don't get into this company, I don't know if there's going to be a next company.
Right.
So so that kind of puts a lot of pressure, and I have seen a lot of my friends, even me, going through that pressure. And it some people take it positively and it brings the best out of them, and some people take it negatively and they get very disheartened. So I would say, don't get disheartened, take things positively, and always believe in yourself, because only if you believe in yourself will you be able to convince the other person that you're the right person.
Right.
So all in all, you guys are going to have a fantastic placement because you're from a very good college and you guys have taken all the efforts, right? Do as many internships as you can, do your projects well, because they really tend to look forward towards your internships and your projects. And don't bluff on your resume, because these guys have taken hundreds of interviews and they can immediately catch if someone is bluffing. So write whatever you have done on your resume very honestly, right? Don't bluff on your resume. Keep your resume one page. uh, Make sure it's clear for them to read and understand your resume, and don't leave blank spaces in your resume. It doesn't look that nice. If there is blank space, probably increase the size of the font, or like somehow do something.
Right. Right.
Don't leave blank spaces. Don't have a 2 or 3 page resume. It's not advice. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that's about it. There's and rest everything is external. There are certain things that you are beyond your control, so you
Exactly.
don't have to worry about those things, and don't compare yourself with someone who's from a software or an IT background, because there is a certain parity, there is a certain difference, right? But I would just say, don't compare yourselves to them. because they have a totally different career trajectory and we have a totally different career trajectory, right? So don't do that comparison because then that will only dishearten you, right?
Exactly.
So don't worry about things that are not within your control and just, take every opportunity that you get and make the best out of it.
Got it. Thank you so much, bro, for your time. And this was certainly very insightful. And
Hmm.
we have gotten so many important nuggets from you. And ending on with a great note that life is an infinite game.
Yeah, not infinite. It's a long game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Infinite is like, I mean, everyone wants to be immortal, but like, it's not possible.
As an infinite, as in bigger spectrum.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, bro. Thank you for joining.
All right. It was my pleasure. Thank you, guys. And I really appreciate you guys taking this up for your batchmates because I don't think we had such a thing. We had certain sessions in the middle where we didn't have like a podcast where every person would come and give you like a detailed idea of whatever they are aware of. I don't know how much I would have helped because even I'm like a college kid only like you guys, but whatever I could like tell from the brief experience that I have, I hope it helped you guys, and I'm really glad you guys have taken this opportunity and are doing such things. So good job, guys. I really like the initiative that you guys have taken.
Thank you so much.
All right. See you guys. Bye bye.